Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Ball is Round. I'm Hady Raphael, and tonight on the show, the first friendly game, and of course, Laurent Courtois pressers, the end of the agreement between CSB and Media Pro, and lastly, Beth Priestman contract extended. That and a lot more on episode 164 of The Ball is Round. And I'm joined today by my good friend Elias Gregoriadis. Elias, how are you today?
I'm doing all right. Not too bad. Happy to be back, of course.
Yeah, it's always nice to be back and to discuss a bit of soccer, Canadian soccer, CF Montreal soccer. And of course, there's always news, some good news, some not so good news, and of course, catastrophes because,
Yeah.
we're in Canada and soccer in Canada, there's always catastrophes everywhere, right? So that's kind of our normal week,
It's a
right?
regular Tuesday. Yeah.
Exactly. So let's jump right into CF Montreal first, because we are a CF Montreal podcast when we think about it. So of course we're going to talk about the pressers. Laurent Courtois did a pregame presser. Then there was the game against Minnesota United, the first friendly game of the season, and then the post-game presser. That was a very, very, very short post-game presser, but of course we'll discuss that a bit more. You and me. So first friendly of the season, 1-1 against Minnesota United. When you look at the friendly game, and especially the first one, how important is the result for you, Elias? Not for Laurent Courtois, for you.
Unless the result is like 5-0 in either direction, it doesn't really mean anything. Unless and even then, right? It's tough to really extrapolate just from a couple live tweets and a score line. But we've become accustomed to that here in Montreal, unfortunately. But yeah, it's a little bit upsetting. But you try and draw as much as you can from what the players say. But even the players, they're not gonna spill their guts about the game and about what they think. It's very tough to kind of get an idea, which is why I'm very excited for the Atlanta game, which will be broadcast live.
Yeah, that's going to be nice. Of course, broadcasted by Atlanta United, of course.
Of course, God forbid.
But you know what? Yeah, for me too. It's usually the first game of the season, the first friendly game is not really important because you heavy legs, a lot of heavy legs. There's a lot of physical aspect of the preparation is there. It's done at the first couple of weeks. So, there's not a lot of things that are done, pitch side. So that's why for me it's not really, really important. But let's talk about what Laurent Courtois said. So in the pregame presser, he said there's a few sentences that I pulled out, and we'll discuss them together. He said that in the first 2 weeks, he and his staff, of course, asked a lot of the players, tactically, technically, and physically. He said there's a lot of fatigue, and even if the first match is important for certain players because they want to prove themselves, they want to prove, and I'm pretty sure we're talking about academy players or, unwanted players or players that are on the transfer list in a certain way. It's important for them. But he said, even if it's important for them, we have to be lenient with them, but also they have to be lenient with themselves. Do you like that kind of communication from Laurent Courtois saying, you know what, I know it's important, I know you're trying to win your place in a rotation or in the first team, but, just, calm down a bit?
Yeah, this sounds like someone who has spent a lot of time coaching young players. It sounds like the tone of someone who's used to, being in situations where you have to groom these players and kind of get them on board first, and then you kind of get to establish other things. So, like Samuel Piet spoke about it a bit before, it's still a feeling out process where you're still kind of trying to get to know one another. And I think that's why he's probably, pushing more for being open and pushing more for people to have a little bit more, um, leeway with themselves. Because, like you said, right, tired legs, and if you can't hop into training camp and immediately expect to be in mid-season form. So, I think that's the right way to go about it, especially with how many young players and how many first new faces are on in this group.
Yeah, unless you're Mathieu Chouanière, because Mathieu Chouanière wins the beep test every time.
Yeah,
We
who
didn't
wins the
hear
beep
anything
test?
about the beep
After the
test.
first week of training camp, exactly.
Exactly. Hey, hi Roberto, who says that recovering from first bout of COVID, no fun. You know what? It seems that we crossed path because I had COVID on Monday. So now I'm recovered, not fully, but like maybe 90% recovered. So it seems like we crossed path at one point during the day at the beginning of the week. But yeah, but I stayed home right after I knew that it was COVID. Like starting Tuesday, I was home. I just went out this morning. That was the first time I went out of the house. I was really stuck at home, but whatever. Uh, Second sentence that uh, he said, yes, we see football as a whole, but we worked on a few aspects before the game. And two things that he worked right away from the get-go: positioning and playing from the back, which is very interesting because I know those aspects were very important for Wilfried Nancy in a certain way. He said also we worked on other stuff and we want the players to experiment them, but he said we're still in the first few phases of those, so we're gonna better them with videos and stuff. And he reminded all the journalists that they've only been together for only 10 days, so just to be a bit lenient. So what do you think about that? The two aspects that he talked about was positioning and playing from the back.
I mean, look, when you have this style of play that Laurent Courtois has spoken about and what we've seen from, the entire Columbus Crew ecosystem, those are the two most important things. And we saw it most obviously, we saw it when Columbus came to Montreal, how it was very much or just organized chaos,
Yeah.
right? Everything seemed so chaotic, and yet they were always in the right spot. They always, in the French, ils ont trouvé leur repère. They always knew where other people were, and they seemed to be on the same page. And that happens with positioning and training, playing out from the back. So look, he's clearly sowing the seeds because that's what he wants to play. But I think he also recognized just how difficult it was last year, and how a lot of the time, yes, they maybe hopped on a counter or two. Maybe yes, there was like these maybe phases of rapid development, but a lot of the time they struggled to get forward because people were just not in the right spot. So was that tactical? Is it the players? Is it whatever? I think Laurent Courtois is just, taking it down to the studs and rebuilding from a tactical perspective. And I think that's what he was brought in to do, right? So
yeah, no, for sure. He was brought in
makes complete sense
to bring back those memories of Wilfried Nancy in a certain way too. Let's put it like that. Now, what I like about him is that he's not afraid to talk about that, like from the get-go. That's what he's talking about. And when I compare him to Losada maybe said it once and then started to backpedal at one point, saying, these things take time. At first, we need to have a structure and stuff like that. So, which was a bit weird at the time. Laurent Courtois is not doing that at all, which is really interesting. Now, he did talk a bit about Roberto Kirsten and Lassi Lapalainen, saying that they're with the group even if they can't train, because it's important for them to be a part of the group. How important is it to make sure that everybody's involved from the get-go, even if they're injured?
I mean, anyone, you've played sports, you remember fondly, the sleepaway tournaments and stuff like that. This is basically just one long team bonding exercise. So, look, I think that in terms of preparing for what is always a very difficult start to the season, I think it's a good thing. I think it's a very good thing. And again, these are just social media videos, right? But they seem to be getting along very well. They seem to be having a good time and they're laughing and stuff like that. But again, that's social media.
This is nothing. This is nothing.
Exactly.
I've asked I've asked around, and I heard that a few players really impressed, and one of them was Sosa.
Yeah.
It's very early, of course, in the camp. It doesn't mean anything. Very early days, but from what I heard, Joaquin Sosa seems to have impressed directly in that Tucson training camp, which is, I think, a good thing, even if we can't really build on that ourselves, but he can build on that to even impress a bit more, in Montreal for the next few days, but also in Florida right after. So this is a good thing for the lad.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, Montreal's usually has a pretty good relationship with Bologna loanee center backs. Historically, that's gone quite well. So
Diane Boldar.
Louis Binks and Gabriele Corbo.
But Louis Binks doesn't come from Bologna.
He was a loan from Bologna, no?
Nah, he came from Tottenham U23.
I thought it was through Bologna, though.
No. And then we sold him to Bologna. Sold him for $0 to Bologna.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, anyway you put it, right? I think that he clearly had the right profile, and I think that there's a reason that his name came out so early, and that little recon mission that Olivier Renard and company did in Italy is obviously starting to pay fruit. And look, that's another left-footed center back, right? So we'll see if maybe this one will work out and how he can do. But at the end of the day, everyone identified a need for a left-footed center back, and if they've got one, they've got one.
Yeah, and they said also that he said himself that he can play as a left back too, or he didn't say which side, but he said he can play as a on the side also. So I suppose left back. So interesting, very interesting. He's only 22 and he seems very mobile. We'll talk about that a bit later, of course. Now, there's something that he said, Laurent Courtois. I think he made a mistake, and I don't think a lot of people really realized. But in his communication, he said, I'm impressed on a few concepts. He said that there are some things that he saw, and the players were very advanced on them. And then he said he was impressed. So he said, I was impressed. So he seemed like he was surprised that the players were in advance on a few concepts. Of course, maybe an error in communication or whatever, but I thought it was very funny because, I don't know, the way things were and the way things ended with Losada. Maybe he thought that players didn't really learn anything. I'm not sure, but I find it very funny.
Choice of words is important, right? Especially when you're talking about your players.
Exactly. He also said a few things about Mahalo Poku, and I feel that I'm not really sure I like what he said. He said he's spectacular, but he said he needs to play by trio or with everybody and not by himself.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think it's harsh, or do you think is it not too early for a coach to be that harsh with a player? Or I don't know. Now Mahala, I don't think he can get mad at anybody, so I don't think it's going to be a problem. But what do you think about that?
I think that there's a lot of different ways you could take those comments. Um, I do think that they were intended as constructive criticism, and if Mahala takes it like that, because I mean, look, Laurent Courtois is correct. Mahala was at his best when he was, it was quick changes of position, and the ball was moving, and he was, getting the spots and using his dribbling and his pace, but as a unit. And the connection with Sunusi Ibrahim, and it was better. He was at his best when it was a team effort. And you know, you're asked about players. You're not going to lie, and I don't think that he's the kind of player. I think he saw it as an opportunity to maybe motivate further, but he's seen a lot more than we have of Mahalo,
Yeah.
and especially the most recent iteration of Mahala. So we'll probably get a better idea of that when they're in Montreal, and when we watch the game against Atlanta live, and we'll get a better idea of what he's talking about. But I think that all in all, those it's not reason to dig too much into them. I
No,
think
no.
that he was the reason he maybe he added all the compliments first was to reinforce the fact that it was constructive criticism and not just like I'm
Yeah,
shitting on my player because
because he said I'm learning a lot of him, so I hope he
mm,
learns a trick or two from me.
exactly. Yeah.
So he kind of, in a way, said, tried to, bring it down a notch a bit. Um, but I felt that it was a bit of a jab, but then he just tried to camouflage it in a certain way. So
I mean, look on the team. He's probably the player with the highest ceiling, right, in the group. One of, if not the highest ceilings
yeah,
in the team,
one
right?
off, yeah.
So I understand why he would look to motivate, players like that as early as possible, especially with Mahala having a significantly larger role this year, right? He's going to be a perennial starter unless people really, really pick up. He's going to be one of the first names on the team sheet, especially if you're looking at a full strength
Mhm.
11. So I understand why Laurent was trying to hit the ground running with him as soon as possible.
Yeah. As soon as he talked about the things that he was impressed in, he also talked about the things that the players needs to work on. Two things that he said: defensively and individual attitudes can be so much better. He said those guys have all the tools to be really competitive, even if we're going to be playing risky soccer. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of things that I like in those words, a lot of things that make me tick in a certain way. What like let me just first of all give my two piece on that. Um, Defensively, I'm not surprised. Yeah, last year, even if at times we had a good defense, during that stretch of games where we had clean sheets and stuff. But at one point, and at the beginning of the season and at the end of the season, the defenders were completely lost, and the midfielders were completely lost defensively in their defensive
Mm-hmm.
structure. So I'm not at all surprised. Individual attitudes, that surprises me because everybody, you know, everybody around the team, everybody in all the medias, all took the player's side, saying, it's Losada that doesn't know how to manage them. He's too strict. He's not whatever. But now the new coach comes in and talks about individual attitudes. And for me, that's a bit concerning. If 10 days in the preseason, you have a few worries about individual attitudes. What do you think about that?
I mean, the comment did seem not out of place, but it definitely did stick out, when you hear it. But at the same time, you are 10 days, you're a week and a half into training camp. So I wouldn't be ringing alarm bells too soon.
No, no,
I
we're just
I kind of
we're
want to
just
see how
talking.
this develops.
Of course.
Exactly, and I guess this is one of his first challenges on the man management front. So I'm also very curious to see how that develops, and how if this becomes a thing, or if it's really just a comment you just throw out there because it's just a tongue in cheek comment. So it'll be interesting to see because he seems like someone who is much like with Freelancey, very very set on his ways and who likes things just so. But at the same time, if you grow up in a youth system, you understand that youth players need a little bit of flexibility. Not too much, obviously, or else it kind of falls apart. But it'll be. I think this is his first real man management challenge since he's gotten here, and I'm very excited to see how he
Yeah,
handles it.
yeah, and I said a couple of times already, since he was hired, that I'm a bit afraid of his communication. So Laurent Courtois. So you know, let's hope this works. I think having so many sentences where sometimes it's a bit tricky. I don't think that's good for the morale of the group that early in preseason. Even if his overall message is very positive, sometimes there are some sentences that, if they're out of the context, can be a bit hurtful in a certain way. So I don't know. Let's wait and see. I'm just being the devil's advocate here. So let's wait and see. Now, he also said something. He said, I'm very curious to get to know the players. He said, I'm always intrigued by those that don't talk much because they're the ones that have a lot to say usually. And he talked about himself, saying that he's not someone that talks a lot. And usually he's someone that likes to observe first and then talk. And then he also said that he likes everybody and, the extroverts are really important and stuff and stuff. But what do you think about that? Saying, I think that's very intelligent from him, saying, you know what? If you're not talking, that doesn't mean that you don't have anything to say. Is that maybe you're not ready yet to say it? That's. It seems that there's a lot of bad blood there. I don't know. What
No,
do
I
you
just
feel?
think look at the end of the day, it's still a workplace, right?
Yeah, for sure,
And
of course.
sometimes people are just naturally more introverted,
Yeah, for
and
sure.
doesn't mean that they don't contribute. Doesn't mean that they don't have their own way of expressing themselves, and doesn't mean once they get onto the field they're not communicative. So I think that especially if you're a new player or a young player and you're still trying to kind of find your footing, it's a nice invitation to you know get people to come out of their shell a little bit. And it's also important because they're spending a lot of time together. So the quicker you feel at home and you feel comfortable, the more productive it's going to be, especially, when they leave here and they spend, they're going to be spending a lot of time on the road, both in Miami and, for the first 6 games of the season, they're spending a lot of time away from home. So I think he's just trying to encourage the players to come out of their shell. That's, it's the sign of a good man manager. So.
Yeah, let's wait and see. And of course, he did talk about Wanyama, saying he had such an amazing attitude. He was so professional, and he's like, he's so nice with me. I wouldn't be that nice if I was already coached in my career by Pochettino and Mourinho. So he's like, he's so nice to me. He's so professional. He's really respectful and everything. So about the bad attitudes, it's not about Victor Wanyama. It seems that Wanyama is not the one to blame when he talked about bad attitudes.
Well,
Individual
at the same
attitudes. He
time,
didn't
right?
say bad. He didn't say
He and
bad.
Nelsie
He said
had
individual attitudes. Yeah.
he and Nelsie had a great relationship,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So whether or not he spoke to Nelsie before Courtois got here, but he definitely understands that they're
Of
trying to do the
course.
same thing. And someone like Victor Wanyama was so dedicated to the on-field product. I think he will get along well with a coach that wants to play his style of football. So I don't think that was too surprising,
No,
but it's
no,
definitely
it's
nice to see,
not.
especially from your veteran.
That's why I was so surprised when I heard Wanyama talk about Losada. He doesn't look like the guy who's gonna be that problematic player. He's
Which would
not. He
indicate
doesn't.
how bad it had gotten.
Exactly. So that was my opinion. So, and he also talked about, because the question was on Wanyama and Mason Toy. He loves the runs of Mason Toy. He said that he
Mhm.
has some amazing runs and everything, but he said he needs a bit of structure, and that they're going to be able to help him with video and stuff like that. So
Mhm.
I feel that he sees something in Mason Toy, which could be very interesting. Last but not least, for the pregame presser, because that's the one that was really interesting. I didn't really like the postgame presser, and we'll talk about it a bit later. Um, he talked about the academy players. He said on day one, they were just happy to be together, taking pictures and everything. And on day two, he said, I had a lot of fun watching them. Um, it sounds a bit weird when I say it in English, but in French, he said something like he was very excited. Like, and he said, I'm just holding my thoughts a bit by how excited I am in a certain
Mhm.
way. And he was surprised of how ambitious they are and how eager to learn they are. And he said, we'll revisit everything in 6 months. So what do you think about, the academy players and what he said about them?
Look, at the end of the day, you're an academy player.
Yeah.
You are there to make a mark for yourself. You're there to make yourself known.
Mhm.
And if you're not going in there to have this excitement and this ambition that Uncle was talking about, then you may as well not have gotten on the plane, and you should have just stayed home. So, look, I'm glad that they all took it seriously, and they all enjoying themselves. Because right, we talked about this a couple weeks ago. At the end of the day, it is a learning experience,
Of
and you're
course.
supposed to enjoy yourself. But you're also trying to become a professional player, and you're also trying to make a name for yourself at the same time. And that means that you can have all the fun in the world when you're hanging out with the group and stuff like that. But when you get on the field, it's literally you're fighting for your livelihood.
Of course.
So I'm happy to see that they take it that seriously, because that's what makes it professional.
Of course. Of course. So I like it. I like the fact that he had very high praise for them.
Hmm.
I think that's
Very important.
important for the young players. It's very, very important for them to know that they're on the right path, for them to know that their coach is watching them and looking at them. So whatever happens with the academy, most probably we're not going to even see one of them play, with the first team. But I think this is very encouraging words from the first team coach, and it's also very promising for their future if they continue
Hmm.
to work. And I feel that the fact that he watched them and that he invited them in Tucson means a lot, saying, you know what, I know you are here, one, and two, here are a few tips and tricks for you to
Yeah.
develop even more. And I think that's going to be very, very interesting, because I think that those players, if Laurent Courtois stays here for a couple of years, I think those players are going to be very important in 2026, 2025, 2026. So I like that. I like that a lot. Um, then, of course, that was all for the pregame presser. That was the game right after. Of course, we didn't see anything. We just
We
saw
saw
the
the
goal.
goal.
The
That's it.
goal.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just saw the goal. And on the cross, it's the first cross was from Elias, and then it was taken back by Sosa, who
Yeah.
crosses it to Wanyama, who scores on a header. Uh, doesn't mean anything, but it's still very interesting for your your acquisition, your new
Hmm.
player to be
Getting the ball.
decisive on his first game, decisive with an assist. I think
And a goal
that's
from a set piece. And a goal from a
yeah,
set piece.
yeah.
Unheard of. Incredible.
So yeah, so very interesting. Of course, we're not going to be able to analyze more of the game. Let's talk about the end of game presser, so the post game presser. Piet and Duke talked a bit at first. Nothing really interesting. The same normal, answers from players. Duke was very happy, of course, because he was close to home, so he had his family come and see him, which is really interesting for such a young kid. And Courtois, said a few things. He said, and we showed a glimpse of what we want to show this season in the first half only, and in the second half, it was a little more hectic and with a little bit less control, but we showed a lot of heart and scored on a set piece that we barely practiced. So he said a lot of positives for different reasons. So it's a bit interesting because when you look at the first team, first half team, I'm just going to give you the 11 for the first half team. So Breza in goal, Campbell, Jibang, Kozlowski in defense as central defenders. Juan on the right, Lassiter on the left. In the middle, Chouanière, Piet, Zuhir, Duke, and up front, Vilsan. I don't know. You're looking at that, and how many sure starters do you have in that starting 11? You only have Mathieu Chouanière, Samuel Piet, and Juan. That's it.
Pretty much. Look, it's preseason, right? It's preseason, and different people heat up at different moments, especially at the first game of the year. But look, at the end of the day, training camp is essentially throwing down the gauntlet and saying, prove to me you deserve to be here, / prove to me you deserve to be a starter, for depending on your scenario. So yeah, I understand why some people who are maybe not, whose position is not as solidified, probably had a little bit more fire, probably had a little bit more oomph. And which is interesting because the first half they conceded a goal and didn't score any in the second half, which was the less, which was the one he enjoyed the least, was the one where they scored and didn't concede. So, but again, goals don't mean anything in preseason.
No, it doesn't mean anything. But still, when you look, it's funny because you would have thought that, that the normal regular starters would be more at ease with the new system than the rookies or the academy players, right?
Ease
it's
doesn't
still
necessarily
very
mean anything in the first game.
Exactly. I'm not. Of course, I'm not drawing any conclusions. I'm just saying that I'm just surprised in a certain way, even if. And you're looking at the second half first 11, where it was a little bit more hectic, with a little bit less control, but with a lot of heart. So you had Sirois, the central defenders, so Corbo, Waterman, Sosa. Then you had Elias on the left, Schiavoni on the right, and Wanyama, Saliba, Ibrahim Toy, and then Opoku up front. When you look at that, if you except Schiavoni and Elias, the rest are all starters in a certain way, or in a rotation with Mason Toy and Ibrahim being in a rotation. Yep. So it's interesting. I don't know. I thought it was a very interesting thing to really see the starting 11s of those two halves and compare them in a certain way. Do you think they're comparable in a certain way? I know it's still early. I know it's the first game, but taking that into consideration, it's interesting.
He's also keeping us guessing because it's two different formations, right? That was a 4-3-4. It was a 3-4-3. It was a proper 3-4-3 with 3 attackers. Whereas, in the first round, it was 4 midfielders. And it was a 3-4-2-1, So I think
Not really, because Ibrahim and Toy can't play in behind of a striker. Sorry, Ibrahim and Opoku can play in behind of a striker of like
Yeah,
Toy.
but the difference is they could play as second strikers, whereas people like Duke or Zuir, for example, play as
Creative
midfielders that
midfielders.
are supporting. So it's different expectations, right?
Yeah.
So again, we're reading into a
Of
game that
course,
we have
we
not
didn't watch
seen,
the game.
but it's but my guess is these are going to be the two formations that that will be default for the majority of the season, just in terms of the sheer numbers in the squad, and where people feel comfortable. He may, you know, dip in and out of formations, but at the end of the day, I think this is going to be what we're sticking with in Montreal.
Yeah. Now the rest of the presser wasn't really interesting, to be honest. Maybe Laurent Courtois had 3 or 4 minutes, so
Yeah,
there wasn't anything really interesting afterwards. The rest are like normal thing. We had heavy legs. The result is not important. We didn't prepare the game. We will work more in Florida. Be patient with us. It's hard to play the way we want to play. Normal stuff. So
all that stuff.
nothing nothing very exciting. Elias, what's really exciting is that they're at last in Montreal. So it's
Yeah,
gonna be
finally.
at Marie Victorin, like we thought, uh, and it's gonna be available. They're gonna be available on the 31st of January, so on Wednesday, Thursday on the 1st of February, and Friday on the 2nd of February. All three sessions are open to the media, so I suppose you're going to all three, if I'm not mistaken.
We'll see. I got work and stuff, but hopefully I'll be there as much as I can.
Yeah, yeah. So it's at 10:30 in the morning. So I don't know. I'm gonna try to go to at least one. I'll try more, but I'm pretty sure I'm gonna go for at least one. I'm obviously I hope on Thursday, because that's when there's a media availability for a Courtois. So that could be very interesting. But we'll see. Let's wait and see what we can do with those, and of course we'll report on the ball is round what we see, either Elias or I, and same thing on Twitter, on X. Sorry, it's not Twitter anymore. So yeah, this is it for CF Montreal. Unless you have anything to add, my friend.
No.
Let's talk about the good stuff. Let's
Yeah.
talk about the good stuff. Roberto asking me, Hady, are you trying to be Eve tonight? I'm not that pessimistic. As pessimistic as I can be, I can never be Eve. It's
It's the COVID. It's the COVID that's done it to you.
Exactly. Maybe. Do I look that pessimistic? I don't know.
You're just asking. You're asking questions, and you're.
Of course, I am. I have to make it
Some,
interesting, right? So on the 25th of January, Joshua Cloak reported that the Canadian soccer business is withdrawing broadcast rights to Canadian soccer from Media Pro. He says CSB, so the Canadian soccer business, is arguing that Media Pro defaulted on majority of right fees for 2023. And One Soccer, of course, being part of Media Pro, will not have rights for Canadian soccer moving forward. Broadcast rights for Canada's national teams, Canadian Premier League, and Canadian Championship now appear available. We've had confirmation right after from all the parties. I'm going to read the statements, if you don't mind, Elias, so you'll be a bit patient with me, so we can, draw all the cards, and then we'll talk about everything at the same time. Something that was really interesting is that each one of the parties issued a statement. So first of all, CSB, so Canadian Soccer Business. Canadian Soccer Business recently filed a notice of action against its media right licensee Media Pro after it failed to meet significant contractual obligations, including defaulting on a majority of its rights fees due for 2023 and failure to secure broader audiences for Canada's national teams, the Canadian Championship, and the Canadian Premier League. Our decision to pursue legal action was not one we took lightly, but we felt it was necessary to protect the tremendous investments we have made to build the game in Canada. By taking back full control of our rights, we will immediately have the opportunity to do so with new partners who have the ability to reach larger audiences. Then there was a statement from Media Pro. And the statement says, Media Pro became the global media partner of CSB in 2019 through a competitive process where we were awarded the right to create, produce, present, distribute, and commercialize CSB's soccer platform. Our aim was to become the home for Canadian soccer, and we're energized by the firm commitment CSB made to growing the Canadian game, specifically by expanding the Canadian Premier League, the crown jewel of the CSB organization, year after year, with more matches and more teams. Since partnering with CSB, we have invested more than $60 million to create an ecosystem for the Canadian game and its fans, including through new production facilities and capabilities, popular online communities, and the establishment of One Soccer, a first-of-its-kind channel dedicated to Canadian soccer. We believe that no entity has invested more in Canadian soccer than Media Pro. Despite the huge passion Canadians have for soccer, it has become clear that CSB has been and will be unable to fulfill its side of our commercial agreement. We have made best effort to work with the CSB on a constructive path forward, but have come to a position where we have no choice but to seek to terminate our agreement. We continue to be excited by the many great things happening in Canadian soccer, but have taken this step in the interest of our global business and our many partners around the world. As this matter is now before the Ontario Superior Court, we will have no further comment. And then we had a statement from Canada Soccer. We are aware of today's update and look forward to working with our partners to ensure that Canadian soccer fans are able to follow our national teams and the Canadian Championship. Our properties, our players, and our teams are premium sports content, and we look forward to continue telling those stories nationally and well beyond our borders. What a shit show.
So diplomatic. They should all
Like-
just get in a room and fight, honestly.
Like, honestly,
Yeah.
What a shit show.
Yeah, no, there's no diplomatic way to put this at the end of the day. This has been everything that happens is just more poison fruit from the poison tree that was this deal to begin with. And you know, this is I'm scared because this can only get worse. Right? This can only get worse. And you know, there's no end in sight. This is terrible. I've tried to kind of wrap my head around it, and I'm genuinely at a loss because you know, you finally had this ecosystem that Canadian soccer had where you can grow. And you know, people were talking about maybe Project 8 being incorporated into the same kind of world and they had the same viewership and everything kind of growing in harmony, more or less. And now it's all just poof. So now there's an insane amount of ambiguity and there's loose strings everywhere. And remember how we've talked about this 1,000 times, but the fact that everything needs to be in order for the country as a whole to move forward into the World Cup. This is the exact opposite. This is the exact opposite.
We should withdraw from the World Cup, honestly. But it's so humiliating. It's just not normal. It's just not. I don't know what to say anymore. Like, you know, we are not in a third world country. We are in one of the most developed countries in the world. these things happen in countries like my birth country. They don't happen in Canada. They shouldn't happen in Canada. They shouldn't happen in it with a Canadian environment, in a Canadian environment. This is not normal. Like, it happened in France, and that's what I can't understand, okay? At one point, I thought in 2019, when the deal was first announced, I thought it was a great idea because there was nothing. So at one point, you need to take a risk. And I kind of understand because, nobody was going to come and give, I think it was, I don't remember how much it was, about $10 million. I don't remember, $20 million, if I remember correctly, whatever. An insane amount for a product that didn't exist before. Okay? And they did everything. One Soccer really did everything. Media Pro did really everything, set the foundations, got, whether we like them or not, got commentators, got analysts, got cameras, even if it was wobbly for times, even if it wasn't really good sometimes. At one point, it became the norm, and the norm was okay. We're able to see all the games of the Canadian Premier League. We're able to see all the games of Canada Soccer, the Canadian national teams, whether the U17s, the U20s, the whatever game there was, it was on One Soccer. So that was positive. That was very positive. Now, the CSB, in a way, and in 2019, the thing was, yes, we want to grow the league. And in a way, Media Pro has a point. The league didn't grow at all. We had Edmonton that's not here anymore. You had so many teams that were supposed to come and to be a part of the Canadian Premier League, and they're not. You still don't have a presence in Quebec. So in a way, yes, CSB failed Media Pro. But at the same time, Media Pro didn't pay what they were required to pay.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Like, I don't think there's one culprit. Everybody is.
Yeah, I think everyone let everyone down, and I think that
and who are the
Robbie
losers?
said it best.
Who are the losers? Us,
the fans.
Of course, it's always
the fans,
us. It's always
but not
us.
just the fans. It's the players. The players who, let's face it, are not on $20,000 a week and who are not on multi-million-dollar contracts. They are hardworking, everyday people who are trying to make a living by playing the sport they love. And a lot of these teams play in markets where there's not that much professional soccer around to watch. And at the end of the day, what this happens now is there's kids growing up there, and the next Alphonso Davies, the next Jonathan David, the next Jesse Fleming, the next Kadisha Buchanan, the next Canadian national team player who grows up in an area with no professional soccer and no game to go to says, yeah, I'll play hockey, I'll play football, I'll go skiing, I'll do something else. And this is how the cycle, and this is how you waste this generation of soccer players. You talk about the wasting a generation when it comes to on-field and when it comes to silverware. That's one way you can waste it. Another way you can waste it is not by capitalizing and growing the sport in your country. And I think that long-term, that is the far more dangerous waste of a generation, is when that generation is on the way out and the same level is not there. Because, of all the provinces and territories, there's 3 that have sustainable and consistent professional soccer, and the other ones are constantly fighting for their lives and fighting for survival. That's not how you grow soccer in a country. And you look at USL, and yes, sports in America are very different. And like Robbie said, right, governments get involved in the States. Whether it's from the state, whether it's from the city, whether it's from the federal government, there's money in sports. Here, you have, if it's not for hockey, the government doesn't want to hear about it. And even then, you have to beg for it. So soccer, they kind of have to do it on their own. And like you said, right? Nobody is without blame. Everybody here dropped the ball in some capacity from an administrative standpoint. And the only people that hurt are the players trying to make a living and the fans who now are worried about whether or not they have to travel 7 hours to watch a professional soccer game.
This is unbelievable. In this day and age, this is unbelievable. And honestly, let's answer the Dr. Food's question, because I really want to go there right now. Are you confident that the Canadian Premier League will find a broadcaster?
Yes.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm very confident that they will find a broadcaster, because at the end of the day, CSB is going to package the national teams, and broadcasters will fight to the death to be able to broadcast the national teams, whether they're successful or not. My concern is that they will now play second, third, fourth, fifth fiddle to the other sports that these broadcasters are showing, right? If it's TSN, if it's the Zone, if it's Sportsnet, if it's whichever broadcasting group ends up with this, they've got 15 other sports in their portfolio, and they're gonna go, hockey draws more people in this market, basketball or football or any other sport draws more people. So we're gonna focus the majority of our content on that, and then we'll give you'll get 5 hours a week to talk about Canadian soccer. And then hockey will get 50, and then football and basketball will get 20 each, and then soccer remains a niche sport in Canada. That's my concern. I have no doubt that CPL, because it'll be bundled with the national teams, if CSB knows what they're doing, it'll be bundled with the national teams, that there will be coverage and there will be broadcasting rights for the clubs. My concern is that if it's not in a place like One Soccer, it will not get the room to grow, right? Problems with One Soccer notwithstanding, it had room to grow. It had so much upside, and it had all the potential, and there was a second league coming in for it to grow even more, right? There was room there.
Project H,
if you go to an oversaturated sports network that already has all these other leagues and all these other sports and all these other interests, you now become another spot. So yeah,
Robbie
you get
says
coverage.
He's not so sure.
They'll get coverage, but that's all they'll get. They'll get maybe some pundits here and there once in a blue moon, but they won't get One Soccer Today. They won't get the weekly shows. They won't get the daily shows. They won't get the social media attention. They won't get specifically dedicated and curated Canadian soccer content.
I don't think I don't think we will see all the games of the Canadian Premier League anymore. I think there will be maybe 1 or 2 games that will show here and there, but no more than that. I'm going to give you my ideal scenario. Okay? My ideal scenario, of course, let's talk about my ideal scenario that's impossible to happen. And then I'll talk with the one that's a bit more reasonable. For me, the one that's impossible to happen is for Radio-Canada and CBC to get all the rights. That, for me, is the ideal scenario, because everything will be free for everybody to watch. And you'll have quality, of course, because they have so many good journalists, and I'm pretty sure you're going to have some good commentators, and it's going to be nationally televised everywhere without paying a dime. A dime. So for me, that will be the greatest things. And of course, Radio-Canada will be able to sell, maybe the Canadian national team package to, TSN, RDS, and whatever it is.
Like One Soccer did.
And I think that will be, One Soccer didn't do that with everybody. That's one of the main problems why, this thing is happening. But
No, but I mean, like, have it on other, like, use their feed on other
yeah, but
broadcasters.
it was
Anyway,
very, very
yeah,
hard. From what I
yeah,
understand, it was very, very hard. There was a few requests made for One Soccer, and they really refused a lot of requests from major players in the field. So yeah. So for me, that will be the best deal. That's for me not it's just not going to happen because Radio Canada and CBC do not have funds, so they're not going to be able to pay for that. So let's throw that out of the window. Um, the most plausible scenario will be, what? For TSN, Sportsnet, TSN, RDS, Sportsnet, and whoever, maybe TVA Sport, they can team up together, whatever. One of those major players come in and just pay that, show one CanPL game a week, and the rest they can send it to Radio Canada and CBC for the rest of the games. That, for me, is the best scenario the Canadian soccer could have. It would be a shame not to be able to see all the Canadian Premier League games. Because even if I don't watch them myself, all of them, from time to time I do what I do. I did have my One Soccer subscription. Of course, now it's just, I think, money thrown out of the bank, but whatever. I used to watch from time to time a game here and there, okay? But I think that if you're at home, you have nothing to do, you open Radio Canada and you have a game, why not? If RDS and TSN or Sportsnet or whoever the Zone or whoever it is, do not want to watch all the Canadian Premier League games, at least the ones that you're not going to be able to broadcast, just make sure to send it, even if for free, to someone that's going to be able to broadcast it for you.
Yeah.
And I think this is more plausible, and even if I think a bit, how do we say, far-fetched.
What's the more realistic thing that you think is going to happen?
They're just going to do two packages. I don't think it's going to be one same package. I think it's going to be the package Canadian national team, Canadian Championship, and then CanPL. And unfortunately, it's going to be very bad for CanPL. But I do agree with you. I think we're going to have a broadcaster for both packages. Maybe for this year, for just a 1-year contract. And then next year, it's going to be a whole different process. So we're going to be able to see if CSB is really able to put the money where the mouth is, or something like that. Is that the saying?
Yeah, that's the saying.
Exactly. So because they've been we discovered and we did and we have so many contacts and we know everybody and stuff. So show us, what are you able to do now?
Prove it.
Just prove it. Show us what you can do, and please get a team in Quebec because it's about time.
Yeah.
If you have so many contacts, go ahead. Help the Canadian Premier League. Yes, I know you're not here to tell the Canadian Premier League what to do, but we're not stupid. Like, come on. You have contacts. Do something about it. Honestly, I'm just so pissed. It shows, right? I'm so pissed.
Just a little bit. Just a little bit.
Anything else to add regarding that?
No, I mean, look, I'm talking until we're blue in the face, but right now, until there's a broadcaster deal, there's not much to talk about now. You kind of just have to sit with your head in your hands and wait and see.
Dude, I just want to tell you something. I've been raving about Canadian soccer for years now, saying that we have a golden generation, trying to prove to everybody. And I used to work with Europeans before, as you know, on Culture Soccer back then, and tell them, hey, guys, we have a golden generation. Soccer is going very well in Canada. And we've been working on that. Players have been showing up. you have everything that you need. And now, on the 28th of January 2024, your teams do not have a broadcasters. One, your men's national team doesn't have a coach. They were eliminated by Jamaica at home for the Copa America. Your women's national team were disastrous at the World Cup. Where are we going? Like, we should be able to move forward. We have everything that we need. You know, so many teams around the world are like praying to have so many good players in their national pool. We have them. And nobody's following it up. Like, how is that happening? How is that happening? I understand that soccer is not, we're not a, you know, I read what Roberto said. We're not a soccer country. Okay, I understand. But soccer is a global sport. At one point, if you're an investor, you should know that you can make a lot of money. So where are you, man? Where are you? Don't you want to make money? Come make money. You have great players.
Yeah.
Whatever. I don't know. It just doesn't make sense. It's as simple as that. It just doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense at all. I don't know if you're watching right now the AFCON, the African Nation Cup.
Incredible.
So many good teams now that have been like at the top of of Africa, of the footballing, you know, the African footballing body now, that are eliminated and out of the group stage, like Algeria, like Ghana, like
for the casual soccer fan, this is the best bang for your buck, the best soccer in the world right now, hands down.
I understand,
especially because there's no. It's the best soccer to watch. I love it.
I understand, but that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is you have so many great teams in AFCON that are praying to have good players and can't have good players, but at least they have broadcasters. At least they have a coach. Give them an Alfonso Davies or a Jonathan David, and you'll see where they will be. Whatever. I'm done with that. But anything else to add, Elias? Because
no, let it end. God,
let it end. Yeah, exactly. We do have another question that I forgot to ask from Amin, who asks, will there be one press conference to present both Kokaro and Yankov? And if so, do you think that Olivier Renard will be there, or it's going to be Gervais Courtois press conference? Sorry, we were going back to CF Montreal, but yeah, I just forgot to ask it before. So what do you think, Elias?
I mean, given that Kokaro is physically in Montreal now, and Yankov is still just links, and there's not that much movement yet, right? On this side, Nilton Georges is reporting on a bunch of stuff happening in Bulgaria, but here there's not much movement. Most likely they're going to try and present him and maybe integrate him into the training at Marie Victorin, would be my best guess. But as for Olivier Renard, look, he wasn't at the Le Rencontre for personal reasons. So if the personal reasons are still there, then he won't be there. The personal reasons have made it so that he can be there. He will be there, right? So it's not for us to tell. It's not for us to really speculate because we don't really know what those personal reasons are. So if and when there is an unveiling for these players, we will find out if Olivier Renard is there by him being there.
Yeah. Okay. I think it would be interesting for someone to ask, is he still here? In a certain way. Yeah.
He's still here. They wouldn't tiptoe around that, especially with all the movement that's been happening on the transfer side. They wouldn't be like, oh, by the way, he's gone now.
because that will be another shit show. So whatever. Um,
They can't
uh,
afford to not get ahead of that. So.
so let's wait and see. But yeah, so Kokaro arrived in Montreal, by the way. So he will be presented, pretty sure, this week. That's going to be very interesting. I'm pretty sure it's going to be on Thursday because I have that feeling. I don't know why, but we'll see. So Kokara is in Montreal. We'll see for Yankov if he's coming, in also, at the airport or whatever. For Olivier Renard, honestly, we don't know shit. So there's nothing that we can say about Olivier Renard and his potential presence or not. So I don't know. If it's a personal reason, I'm pretty sure he doesn't want it to know, like he doesn't want it to come out. So it didn't come out yet. So, and I don't think it will come out because he has a right to
It's
his
his
personal
personal
life.
life, right? Yeah.
So yeah. So we don't know. But is it gonna be for you the same press conference? I don't think so. For me, it's gonna be two different ones. So we'll see.
And it won't be a press conference. It most likely be like maybe it's even like just a media availability, right? It may not be like
Yeah.
a proper sit down press conference,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. Let's wait and see. We'll see. So these were the two questions we had today. And last but not least, our last subject. And that's kind of a good news, or at least continuity in a project, because, we don't have any continuity anywhere.
it only comes from the women's national team. I swear.
Exactly. So
The only good
with
news is
Beth
always
Priestman extending her contract through to the FIFA 2027 Women's World Cup. So she says, I want to thank Canada Soccer for this opportunity, and I'm delighted to commit to this team, a collection of world-class players through to the FIFA 2027 Women's World Cup. We closed out 2023 in an exciting fashion, and I can't wait to continue the journey with this incredible group. It is clear to me that the future is bright with the talents we have coming through our system, and I'm honored to be leading our efforts in chasing even more success for this program and our country. What do you think, Elias? Is that the good news? We know Beth Priestman, yes, she did win the Tokyo 2020 or 2021 Olympics, the gold medal, the first one for Canada. Yes, she did that, but there was a very poor showing right after in the
yeah.
Women's World Cup right after in 2023. So is it a good thing to have Beth Priestman continue that long and give her a 3-year contract after that debacle in Paris?
Look, we talked about
Not in Paris. Where
did
in Australia? Sorry,
in Australia, yeah.
Sorry
We
about that.
talked about did Beth Priestman learn anything, and can they apply what they learned? Right. We said the same thing after the men's team fell apart in Qatar, and it
Yeah.
was clear that the men's team learned nothing. On the women's hand, it does feel like there is progression. It does feel like there is a certain evolution. And again, we haven't had enough competitive matches to truly tell. Because then you can have competitive players in a friendly. At the end of the day, it's still a friendly. And even Shibali's Cup is ultimately, it's
So why
glorified.
not wait? Why not wait for those
That's
games
what
to
I'm saying.
happen before?
Wait after the Gold Cup, which is your next competitive tournament, and see. Okay, Bev Priestman. Okay, national team. Have you learned from the World Cup? And I would have thought that maybe that extension comes after the Gold Cup, depending on the result.
Do
Now,
you
is this a
think?
show of confidence? Maybe. And
Yeah,
maybe they kind of
exactly.
want just some stability, for the love of God, somewhere in Canadian soccer, just any stability. And look, another reason is Beth Priestman is a hell of a coach, and she's shown it on a number of occasions. So this is very much just a show of confidence, saying, "Look, we back you." They are going to defend their Olympic medal in you know in a few months. It's coming up very soon, and I think that, look, any way you cut it, I'm not mad at this at all. I can't find a way to be upset with this. I do think it maybe was a little bit
I'm not
premature,
upset. I think
but I think that ultimately they'll be rewarded for that.
I'm not upset. I'm just surprised of the timing.
Yeah.
And I'm surprised about the length of the contract.
Yes.
Because 28 in 47 matches, 28 wins, 9 losses, 10 draws. When you know that, you know, out of your 28 wins, you had maybe 20 that are against, you know, islands that unfortunately do not
teams you should
have
be beating. Teams you should
sufficient.
be beating.
Yeah, well, you know, teams that do not have a lot of, you know, sufficient funds to compete against Canada. I'm not really sure that it's a good. It's a very good track record for Bev Priestman. And of course, we have to say, I really don't like, you know, having Michelle Prince and Adriana Leon up front. You know, that's, and Jordan Heidema.
There's too many players that are white hot right now in Europe that I want to see them at least get a chance at the Gold Cup and at least get a chance to show what they could do. Namely, we talked about last week, Olivia Smith, who is to say that she is on fire is an understatement. She has, she's averaging 2 goal contributions a game. She's killing it in Portugal. Evelyn Viens, who's finally rediscovered her form, and they're off to the next round of the Champions League. There's other people there. So again, Bev Priestman, prove that you learned from the World Cup, and let's see some evolution.
Yeah, and when they announced it, they put an emphasis on the fact that she's on a 5-1 run since the World Cup, and I'm like, yeah, but
you better be.
Yes,
look at the teams you play.
You beat Jamaica in Toronto 2-1. Then, or they could have said 6-1 because they played Jamaica twice and beat them twice.
Yeah.
Then they lost against Brazil in a friendly in Montreal. Then they won against Brazil in Halifax. Then they won against Australia in Langford with the C team with Australia. And then they won against Vancouver against Australia again, a 1-0 with the final hooray for. Huh? That was the B team
this time.
Of Australia.
Not the C
exactly.
team.
Exactly. So the C and the B team. So I don't know. I don't know about that. Now, I kind of understand, and maybe there was pressure put by Bev Priestman saying, you know what, if you want me to continue, or else, maybe she had another proposition. If you want me to continue, the extension has to happen now. I proved myself since I was hired. I won the gold medal. I need to make sure that I have stability to build something new. I need a contract now. That's a possibility too. And you know what? It makes sense. At the end of the day, it makes sense, even if I would have liked to see that after the Gold Cup. Talking about the Gold Cup, Elias, very, very, very important tournament for the Canadian women's national team.
Yeah.
I think this is... Okay, I'm going to ask you a question.
Oh, no.
If you have to choose between a win in the Olympics or a win in the Gold Cup, which one would you choose?
Olympics. 100% Olympics.
Nah, not me.
100%. Really?
Yeah, not me.
Look, the World Cup is the World Cup. This is the next closest thing to best on best.
Not really, because it's not the best teams that qualify.
No, the qualification is a lot trickier. But
doesn't make sense.
This is still...
Yeah, but you know what? I think that beating the US and Mexico right now beats playing, teams that are not at their best in the Olympics. And you know what? We did win the Olympics once.
Yeah, but I think that,
beat the US, man. Beat the US in
Yeah,
the
that's
US. Beat the US in the US.
that
Do you
that would be
imagine
that would
that?
be that would be pretty great. That's
I
never
don't
get
know.
tired of that. Yeah.
Of course, I'll be very happy if we win the Olympics. Don't think that I wouldn't be, far from it. But yeah, I want that Gold Cup. I really want it. And you know what? You also have, the Gold Cup. You also have the South American teams.
Hmm.
You have Brazil, you have Paraguay, you have some decent teams. You have Colombia and you have Argentina. And then the States, Mexico, Panama, Costa Rica, and of course other teams that are not yet qualified. So I think there's three teams: either Haiti, Puerto Rico, Salvador, Guatemala,
Yeah.
Guyana, and Dominican Republic. Okay, these are not very important, but I don't know. I really want that Gold Cup, and it's pretty soon, huh? By the way, it starts
Oh
for
yeah,
Canada on the
it's around the
22nd.
corner. Yeah, it's in a couple
It's
weeks.
in less than a month.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Let's wait and see. Let's wait and see. Anything
I
else
mean,
to
the
add
Americans are
on
going to be
the?
at the Olympics. I still think that the Olympics are bigger.
Yeah, they
So
are
just go and win
bigger.
both.
But
So just
I
go and
didn't.
win both.
I didn't say there which one is bigger. I said which one would you
Just beating
prefer?
them in America. Yes, that would be nice.
Exactly.
But I would still pick the Olympics.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. You don't like new things. Okay.
It's not a new tournament.
No, but it's new for us to win in the US against the US.
It's new for us to win, period. Just enjoy it. Not for the women, but
We're talking about the women's. So,
yeah.
when was the last time the women won the Gold Cup? Did they ever win the World Cup? Yeah, I think it
I
happened
think they have
once.
one. I think they have
Yeah,
one.
I think it happened once, but that was maybe a while ago, if I remember correctly. So, I don't know. Yeah, I think it was we won in '98, and it happened twice: '98 and 2010.
There you go. So
So
we're due.
yeah, and in '98 it happened. It was in Toronto, and in 2010 it was in Mexico. So we never won in the States. We never
There you
won
go.
in the
It's
States.
gonna happen.
And when we win,
Hady confirmation. Here
when we
go.
won in 2010, we didn't play the US because we weren't able to beat the US yet. So
Hady got the script in advance. Canada is gonna win. So
no, I didn't say that.
plan
I
the
just
parade.
hope that it's gonna
You
happen.
literally just said it. So.
Hopefully, let's wait and see. Let's wait and see. Let's go. Let's go with social media. I think we're
Let's
done
do
with
it.
the program
Lots
today.
to talk about on the social media.
And we do have lots to talk about. So here's the segment.
Yes. So the first tweet is something I really want to talk about because it's from Sebastian Salazar. We're going to play you the clip because there's a lot of important contests. MLS Cup or Supporter Shield. So this is Matt Miazga that was on the show and talked about FC Cincinnati's Supporter Shield win and comparing it with an MLS Cup.
When you guys clinched the Shield, your coach came out and said, "This has surpassed MLS Cup." And we actually did a segment on the show. We were like, "Wait, what?"
What do you guys think?
Well, so I'll let you know exactly what I think. I'm of the vein that supporter shields aren't real trophies. They mean something to the team because it means you're consistent and you're good and you were the best in the regular season, but it holds no weight compared to an MLS Cup.
Can I just add to that? The unbalanced schedule makes it so like whatever points you would achieve against your schedule, we couldn't really compare to the points that LAFC achieved.
That is true, but that's just a matter of 5 or 6 games because of the schedule. Because like I'm playing, well, that's true because they're only playing West and we're only playing East, and then we play a couple.
So like, so you're not playing.
That is a good point.
I'm not taking anything away from you. What you guys were the best team in Major League Soccer. What I'm saying is it's not the same as winning MLS Cup. That's
I'm looking at it. I've been in Europe for 7 years, so I'm looking at it from a European perspective. It's much more, it's harder and more demanding to be consistent and the best team through a season of 10 months or 9 months, whatever it was, through a course of 34 games, especially in the conditions that MLS has in the in the dead of summer. Playing in that heat is crazy. But nonetheless, a consistent stretch of 34 games, being the best team consistently, I feel like it's much more harder to win.
It's absolutely more hard to be consistent for 9 months than
a 5-game stretch of like it's a tournament.
Course.
But that's the American way of doing things. You have regular season and you have playoffs. In Europe, you're champion. Regular season, that's the
So
trophy.
you consider yourself champion?
Well, we won the league, didn't we not?
Right.
We won the league.
You won the Supporters Shield.
Well, that's
Columbus won the league.
I don't know. They won the playoffs. I understand your perspective.
I gotta roll. When you retire, you gotta sit over here with me. I'm telling you.
What would you rather have, Supporter Shield or MLS Cup?
That's tough to say because it's.
How is that tough to say?
Because I won the Supporter Shield, so I'm gonna be a bit biased.
I love it. Thank you.
I'm not gonna beat around the bush with you guys.
Very interesting. Very,
now
very
I want
interesting.
I have a lot of thoughts about this.
Go.
I want to hear what you have to say first because
Listen, both trophies are as important as, they're as important. The Supporter Shields, I think, deserves a lot more credit in the North American soccer scene. A lot more credit. I think winning the Supporter Shield should give you a lot more than it gives you right now. That I agree. But the thing is, and I love the discussion, to compare it to winning a championship in Europe, I'm not really, I don't really agree because you didn't play all the teams home and away. And that's the reason why, for me, the Supporter Shield is not as important as the MLS Cup. Now, in the MLS Cup, you're not playing all the teams either, but it's a cup format.
Yeah.
It's a cup format. So at one point, I see MLS Cup like some sort of it's playoffs, as they said. So it's important because you have the pressure. You have a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
You have the aggressivity of the players that really grows and grows. You have the tension, you have the scene. You have the scenery in a certain way where the more you advance, the more you have a spotlights on you. So for me, when I look at the way it's done and the MLS has done things, I do consider the MLS Cup is more important than the Supporter Shield. But I think that if I had a choice, if money was not a problem, if, North America, because, we're not going to talk about the States and Canada. Okay, let's say States and Canada weren't that big. For me, I wouldn't have a playoff system. I would have had home and away games between all the teams in the MLS and like they do in Europe, because I think that's the proper way to name a champion in soccer. The consistency is very important. But knowing all the facts, knowing all the hurdles, it's impossible to do that. So right now, MLS Cup for me is more important than the Supporter Shields because of that.
We talked about this a bit when we were debating in the playoffs 2 legs versus best 2 out of 3. And we talked about the Americanization of soccer.
Yeah.
And we talked about how it has been Americanized to make it more palpable to the casual American sports fan. Not soccer fan, sports fan.
Yeah.
And I can understand the concession, and I understand that in every other sport, winning the league title means nothing. In fact, teams sometimes avoid it because of the fact that it adds all this pressure for nothing, right? Soccer is different and that's why you have all these players like Matt Miazga, who has come from Europe and who is familiar with this European system and why the league matters so much. I find that Hercules Gomez's comment saying that it's not even a trophy is disrespectful, especially saying to the face of the player who just won it. Disrespectful, but that's neither here nor there. I think that ultimately that is the most extreme case of the Americanization of soccer. And I think that at the end of the day, especially given the fact that the East was so much stronger and so much more competitive than the Western Conference, the fact that they won the Supporters' Shield by the margin they did not only makes it more impressive than winning an MLS Cup, it makes it more impressive than winning most Supporters' Shields runs. Because you have teams like, you have the LAFC that walked through everybody and broke the record. You have the Bruce Arena's New England Revolution that in recent years that ran through everybody. Stuff like that. I understand why people would discount it because those teams are so clearly above and they would just beat up on everybody. But in a year like this, it really highlights why the league title is so important, because it shows that in this team, especially in this conference, where anybody in the top 4 of the East was a reasonable MLS Cup contender, they were head and shoulders above all season. It's not they got hot, they won 10 games in a row and then they were kind of just like decent for the rest of the year. They were the best team in the league from start to finish. Right?
But
and I think
they
that's
didn't
why
they didn't play against all the teams in the league.
No,
so how can you say the best in the league if they didn't play against all the teams? They're not the best in the league because they didn't play against everybody.
No, but at the same time, Manchester City lost to, relegation contenders. Does that mean that, if they didn't play that game and they still won the league with 100 points, they're not the best team in the league?
Think about it. There's a possibility that the first in the East and the first in the West never played against each other.
Yeah.
And that's what bugs me. I don't care about winning or losing. How can you declare yourself the best team in the league if you haven't played against the best of the best
over the course of 34 games, with every single obstacle that the MLS calendar throws at you, all the competitions, everything, they've managed to consistently stay at the best. And that ultimately, whether they play every team or not, what the league celebrates compared to the FA Cup, compared to the League Cup.
Okay, you know what? Let's push it forward. Let's try to give you another scenario, okay? Yeah. Let's say the league grows into 100 teams. 100 teams. Okay? Of course, they can't really play against each other, all of them. Okay?
No.
Okay. They divide the teams by regions. And the region they play against each other. So the one with the most points win the league? It doesn't make sense. Because you'll have
at the same time, you're not going to have a league with 100 teams. You're not going to have a league with 40 teams.
But it's the same thing. I'm just, it's exactly the same thing. You have so many teams that you didn't play against, because even when you're last in the, look at it from the other end of the spectrum. Okay, if you're last in the league, in the East or in league, are you really last in the league? You're not, because you didn't play against the other teams.
No, but you had the exact same schedule, almost the exact same schedule as half the league.
Not really.
You play home and you have home and away against every team in the East.
Yeah, but it's not the same. It's not in the same order. Sometimes you have a schedule where you go 3 games in the West and then come back, and sometimes you have 1 game in the West, 2 games in the East, and 3 games in the West, and 1 game in the East, and 3 games. It's not the same.
And the fact
and that's why you have
every team has a nightmare of a schedule. And nobody has an easy schedule in MLS.
I don't agree. That's why you have teams, and as soon as the MLS schedule comes up, you have people, you have experts or whatever it is that go and give you the toughest schedules of each team, and they just rank it. This team has the toughest schedule. This has the second toughest, and so on and so on, because the schedules are not fair. They're not. Don't tell me they are. Don't tell me that Montreal, starting the season with what, 5 games away, 6 games away, I don't remember, 6 games away, have the same strength of schedule at the end of the year. Because if you have 6 losses at the beginning of the year, it's kind of impossible for you to have a good year afterwards. It's impossible. It's impossible. And it happened once with DC United, where they had 11 games away when they started, and then they were able to make it to the playoffs with Rooney, with Acosta, and those players. It doesn't happen often. So, no, it's not, unfortunately, the way the league is done. And because of the territory, because of North America being so big, it's impossible to have a championship the way it's done in Europe. And this is the next best thing that's, of course, has its flaws, but makes sense in a certain way. I think if you want something that would be even better, it would be to maybe divide it into 34 teams into 6 groups, have the top 3 of 6 groups play against each other, and then do the playoffs. But that would be so complex and so expensive that it doesn't make sense. So let's agree to disagree, my friend. Let's agree to disagree.
Yes, this could be an entire podcast episode in and of itself. So we'll get into it. Maybe we'll get into another time and have another
exactly. We'll do yeah, whenever we don't have a lot of news, which never happens. Exactly. We'll discuss that again. Second tweet.
This is from Sabrine. We talked about it earlier today. This is a quote from Laurent Courtois. Opoku is spectacular. We need to find a way to get him more involved with playing in trios, more than just with the ball, but he has qualities that you can't teach, and he has a heart that few have. I hope he takes a few of my tips to become a really interesting player. What we talked about, these comments, but more in Opoku's side, right? He came in last year, it was mid-season. It was difficult to gauge what would be a good season for him. This year, what do you want to see from Mahala that would be like, okay, this year was excellent year?
At one point, strikers, it's what they need to do is score goals. As simple as that. Score goals and assists. That's what I want to see. And for me, it's funny when someone says, statistics are not very important. No, I don't agree. For a striker, it's all there is. So for me, for Opoku to have a good season, he needs to have at least 5 assists and 8 goals.
Okay. Is there anything in the qualitative that you want to see that would make him have a good season, or is it doesn't matter how, but as long as he gets those stats, it's a good year, and the rest is
as long as he has those stats, it's going to be a good year. And we're talking about MLS, right? I'm not talking Canadian Championship.
Yeah, no, not all competitions.
Yeah, exactly. Just MLS. Yeah. Now, and this would be a great year. I'm not talking about a good year, because I think
excellent. Exactly. You look back and when we do our ratings, and it's like at least an 8.
Yeah, exactly. Now, of course, if those he could have a great season with less stats, if he scores, very important goals, in matches that are very important. Like if he scores a brace against Messi and his friends, and then scores the goal to qualify us to the playoffs, and then scores the goal to get us through the second round. Yeah, okay. Yeah, he could have a great season just by scoring those goals, for sure. But I think that for sure he will have a great season if he has at least 8 goals, 5 assists.
All right, that's good. I'd like to see, especially with Kakaro coming in, who's going to be that kind of goal hungry presence. I'd love to see more of a partnership, kind of like what we saw with Kyoto and Mihailovic, where they're always looking for each other and either both make the other more dangerous. I think that's, if you're looking for a qualitative measure, definitely the relationship between, you know, your best creative player and your talisman. I think that is the key to success in MLS, especially if you don't have one player that can, you know, get 15 goals and 15 assists per season. I think having that kind of link is super crucial. So if I'm looking for a qualitative, it's definitely that relationship with Kakaro. We'll find out.
No, for sure. That's going to be very important. You know, the partnership with Kakaro is going to be very important. But at the end of the day, that's why the 5 assists are important. Because if he gives 5 assists, for me, at least 3 of them are to Kakaro. So it goes hand in hand with your comments. But I agree. I agree with you. So moving on with the third tweet.
Next tweet, yes, this is from Emile. I was kind of hoping to ask Eve about this because she was very worried about the depth, but we will very rarely have a typical 11 given injuries, selection, rotation, etc. But if we look at only the second choices at each position, and he's taking liberty, especially midfield, he's taking liberty with second choices, but you'll see. So in nets we have Sebastian Breza. Then the back line is Lassi Lapalainen, Fernando
Alvarez.
Jeez, I'm sorry. Then we have Joaquin Sosa, we have Robert Torkelson and Ariel Lester, and then in the midfield it's, you know, Samuel Pietro, Victor Wanyama with Natal Saliba or Rida Zuir, and then, you know, the second choice attacking midfielder would be Bryce Duke, behind Jean-Anthony Vissaint, and either Sunusi Rahim, Mason Toy, and Chinonzo Ofor.
Yeah.
What do you think of the depth? Because Eve did have a point that in some spots the depth was a little worrisome. Now with all the with this seeming to be the final squad that they're going into the season with that being the rotational squad, what do you think about
that? First of all, I think Sosa will be in front of George Campbell as a starter. That's my opinion.
I agree.
You know, from what I heard of course, I need him. I need to see him play a bit more before I do I take a final decision. I think we're a bit thin in center backs in quality. That for me is a bit worrisome. But the rest, as strikers, I don't think we're thin. As midfielders, I think we're okay. Left wing back, right wing back, we're okay. Goalkeeper, I do not like Breza. I think I said it 16 times already.
But do you like returns, though?
I love returns.
That's the real question.
But no, I think we're okay. I just center back. The center back, it really worries me because you have I love Corbo, Waterman, Sosa, you know, Campbell, but the rest, Alvarez, I'm really not sure what he can bring yet. I haven't seen enough of him. Yes, he had a good showing at one point, but also he went with the reserve team and he got eaten by a PLSQ team at one point, Saint Laurent at one point. So I'm not sure what to think of him. You have Jabang, that's Torkelson, always injured. So I don't know. There's nobody else than 4 good center backs in a 3-man back line. I think you need the 5th one. You need the 5th,
especially now that there's no fullback that can play center back in a pinch like Aaron Herrera could.
Exactly. So that's the only concern that I have right now. The rest, I'm okay.
That's a fair concern. That's a very fair concern too.
And of course, I'm not really sure what's, Kakaro I can live with. I think he has what it takes to be a good striker. Yankov, I'm not convinced yet. From what I read, I'm not convinced. I was looking at the guy that really, did his thread about Yankov, him being so good and everything. And at the end, someone asked him, he's like, if he's so good, why he's not a starter with Ludo Goretz? And he's like, but with Ludo Goretz, we have so many good players in front of him. I'm like, dude, it's Ludo Goretz, man. Like, yes, it's a Champions League team from time to time, but it's still Ludo Goretz. Like, if you're not a starter in Ludo Goretz, how come you're such a great player? So I don't know. I'm a bit skeptical with Yankov. So
it's also it's nowhere near the confirmed.
Yeah, exactly.
The level of confirmation that Kakara was at any point. So the links with him were much stronger.
I hope that Olivier Renard is somewhere trying to work on a very, very big name, because looking at what we're seeing right now with 14,000 season tickets sold, and even those 6-game packages, it was last time they communicated on it, 91% were already sold at very high prices. So there's money in the bank. Like, maybe it's time to use it a bit. So let's wait and see. Moving on with the fourth tweet.
Yes, this is from Nilton Joes, of course, we know and love. Jean Yalassi is, it's translated from French. Jean Yalassi is in MLS Next Pro. Crown Legacy, who is Charlotte FC's reserve team in MLS Next Pro, announced the signature of the former Montreal player for the 2024 season. He signed in 2020 at the same time as Nathan Saliba, Rida Zouir, and Sean Rea. And the 19-year-old played last year in the CPL on loan from Montreal with Atletico Ottawa. After a season where he scored 1 goal, picked up 3 assists in 27 games, he was let go of his contract by CF Montreal. This is a bit of a hypothetical, and very interested in what you think, but if Montreal had an MLS Next Pro team, and they didn't loan out these players like Jonathan Savoie, like Sean Rea, like Jean Yalassi, even like Elias Iliadis, or even, a couple of years ago, like James Pantemis, how competitive do you think that team is if all that CPL talent, along with the academy players who permanently transferred to CPL clubs, who instead very reasonably could have gone to MLS Next Pro?
Yeah, there's Catavolo, there's Cavoni,
exactly.
There's a lot
there's
of
a
players
few.
that could have been.
How competitive is that team?
I think we have a very good academy, and I think a lot of people maybe tend to forget that, because it's been hard for academy players to be with the first team because of the lack of funds. But we have a very good academy, and whenever we play against other academies within the MLS, we always have very good results. I think we would have been a good team, maybe top of the table, maybe not the top 3 or top 5, maybe top 8 most of the time. And then whenever we had some very good talents, we could be in the top 3 to top 5. But the thing is, it's very easy to say, but you need funds, and I don't think that Montreal has the funds to maintain a team to the top year in, year out. So I don't think we'll be that good, because sometimes we'll have some good generations, and sometimes a bit like the first team. Sometimes we're very good. We're first and whatever second or whatever it is, and we qualify to the playoffs. And sometimes we're last in the league. So I think it's always going to be that way with Montreal, because it's all about the talent within your local pool. If you have enough talent, then you're good. If you don't have enough talent, then you're bad, because you don't have money. As simple as that. So hard to answer your question, but I think it would have been exactly the same thing as the first team. If we had an MLS Next Pro team, it would have been up and down. Most
up
of the
and
time.
Down. I tend to agree. I'm not. I think they probably would have been even a bit more successful, given that you don't need the big names and the big signings in MLS Next Pro. You just need the quality academy. But it'd be again entirely hypothetical, at least for the very near future.
Good. Last but not least.
This is for Giuseppe Campanelli and Alex Kezid, who spotted it first. CF Montreal's new away jersey for 2024 has been leaked. Where has it been leaked? In FIFA 24. A lot of MLS kits have been in the game, and people open packs and they find this kit waiting for them, and they go, wait a minute, that kit's not supposed to be out. Somebody dropped the ball massively, and I feel terrible for all the MLS content teams that have been working very hard to organize, the reveals. But Hady, this is the club's second kit. The gray is gone. It can't hurt us anymore. What do you think of this new second kit?
I kind of like it. First of all, the turquoise for me is very important. I like that. It reminds me a bit more of the team that's right behind me. There's a blue that's pretty close to what I see behind. So Marseille, for people that are asking.
I thought it was Manchester.
I'm wondering. Yeah, right. I really love the logo with the white and
with the different colors. I love it.
I really love it. Now, this is like I need to see it in person in order to give a final opinion. But from what we see, it looks very, very inviting, very, very interesting.
It's going to sell very well, I think, in the shops. I think we might see people, a lot of people wearing that instead of the main jersey, just because of the colors. It's a very interesting color scheme, and the fact that it gets automatic brownie points for me because it's not gray, and I think that is the most important part. But no, I love it. I think it's a very nice second kit. I would have loved to see a traditional white kit like we used to have, but this is a very, very, very good alternative.
Yeah, I agree.
I'd like to see like a one-off, maybe once in a while, like a one-off, like a white kit, like they used to have. I think that'd be pretty cool.
It might happen.
Yeah, like a special game, like maybe for like Montreal, Toronto, they bring out the white kit. That'd be cool. But yeah, that'd be maybe asking a little bit too much given the jersey situation the club's been in the last few years.
Chan says he's just back from the airport and he saw Jimmy Briand. Thanks for the laughs, Chan. Thanks for the laughs.
Is that it? Only Jimmy?
No, but that's
for those who don't know, a couple of fans did greet Carl at the airport, and there were some pictures on social media, and we'd like to welcome Carl to Montreal. Welcome. Hopefully we see you at Marivic, and enjoy the snow.
And for us, that's it for today. It was a really packed show. So I hope you guys liked it. As usual, I'll always end up by saying that our content will always be free. But if you want to help us grow the content, as you can see, we have a brand new jingle, and I haven't heard anybody, congratulate us on the new jingle. We're so happy to have it.
A friend of mine said he liked it. So
nice, love it. So we do have a new jingle. So if you want to help us grow the content, feel free to become our Patreon and help us out. If not, continue on just participating in our podcast, sharing the love on all social platforms, and of course we're here. I think we're always going to be here. So this is it for today. Hopefully we'll see you next week for episode 165 of The Ball is Round.